Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to this episode of the Mental Health Warrior Program podcast, No Surrender. Now, one of the key components we want to talk about today, and this is a very high level concept, but it's something that we can also use every day. And that is we need to change how we view mental health from a weakness to a strength. Now, I'm going to go through with you some stories. We're going to go through some experiences I've had when we treat it as a weakness and what I see occurring both personally and what I can see occurring with other people. And then I'm going to help you see why I believe today, and it's one of the key things of being a warrior, is that mental health is a strength. And the doors that this opens up, the amazing ability to, when we change our mindset on how we view mental health and how we view it as a strength, we can actually grow more powerful, open up more opportunities to do things with the power of our mental health and to make changes in our life. So I hope you're excited. I'm excited to talk to you about this, and I want to get jumping right in. So first thing is one of the things that's tough, and this is something that goes on everywhere. And a lot of times it's in movies, it's in TV shows, it's in kind of society, in a lot of jobs, in the way we're taught things. And I'll even throw in it's even tougher sometimes for a guy because, again, emotions, when we equate them as a weakness, we're not supposed to deal with them or show any ability to even acknowledge them, let alone, like I said, deal with them. So let's talk about that for a bit. And what has happened is, I think part of what has happened is when we go into a subject like mental health, and essentially we are talking about being able to share our emotions, be able to manage our emotions, and most importantly, be able to accept that we have those emotions, that things in life, experiences, jobs, the tragedies, the trials, the tribulations, whatever you want to call it, all of those things are tied to emotions. So the first point I want to make is let's dispel on this path to prove that mental health is a strength. Let's dispel the fact that we can go through life and emotions really don't play a big role. Because I challenge you to think of anything you've done in the last week or the last day that didn't involve emotions. And the reason is a lot of times we're moving so fast in life. A lot of times our days, our cell phones are beeping, everything's going fast, and we're busy. What happens is we just forget and we don't realize that the emotions are there everywhere. Just like I had to remind myself when I was causing and having a lot of problems. So when I was struggling with bipolar disorder, alcoholism, anxiety disorders, PTSD from all of my experiences, well, what happened was I was moving so fast and keeping so busy that I was forgetting two important points. One, that I was at the center of everything, which we kind of forget because we're living our life, and it's one of those duh moments I like to call, where it's so obvious, but sometimes we forget it. But there's also one piece with that that says, hey, if we're in the middle, then guess what? So are our emotions. That means everything we're doing and every experience we go through, everything that we're going through each day, each hour, those emotions are also with us all the time. Again, I go back to that challenge because the answer is there is nothing you do without emotions, because when you take them out of the equation, when you try to pretend they don't exist, when I tried to go and tamper them down from a tough experience, what happened was everything became flat and emotionless, or it actually caused more problems because I couldn't deal with the emotions. So again, one of the examples I'd like to bring up, so at one point I was an EMT. I was in high school and I was trying to deal with all the things that come with being an EMT, the types of calls you see, the experiences you have, from the thrill of rushing to a call to the tragedies of when you got to the call and saw what had really happened or what those people were going through, obviously not on a good day in their life. And to pretend that I could exist and do these things, I could do the skills, but to pretend I could exist and do them without emotions, well, that's where today I would just call myself foolish in that opinion. But a lot of times we tend to take cues from society. We tend to take cues from, even in this point, being a guy. And a lot of the movies and the things I was watching at the time, the idea was we're going to tough it out. We should be stronger than them. But the idea was I'm stronger by denying them. Or in my case, I chose to then start drinking, which was a great way to hide from them. Basically, they're so painful, I will just check out in my mind. Now, a lot of that then feeds into, if that solution works, it might work for my other challenges. And again, we start bringing more problems into this, all because of that initial viewpoint that mental health, in this case, we're saying it's a weakness, which is blatantly not true. It is a strength. But I wanted to show you what can happen in that slippery slope by just that initial belief. Now, again, there are other things we go through. Maybe you haven't been an EMT, but I was in the IT workforce and I was working at bigger companies, and I moved from smaller companies up to bigger companies. I went on trips where you're engaging and going with meeting people around the country. And the thing is, all of that ramped up my anxiety. And again, not being able to handle those emotions made it tough and tougher each time to go on that trip, to go and have those experiences, to even go into a big meeting. And of course, we all want to keep moving forward in our jobs or our pursuits. And what happens is we push ourselves to move forward and we increase the challenges. Now, we're kind of putting ourselves in a no-win position if we view mental health as a weakness, because we're going to have to find more and more short-term solutions to just get through that challenging time. That is not a good way to live, and it's not a good way for success. So you can see now, not only personally with some tough things in my life with being an EMT, tough things in the job, and then we get into tough things you want to do in your personal life, pursuits, interests. And a lot of times, if we're afraid to deal with the emotions, we have kind of a double-edged sword. Because the problem is, when we're afraid to deal with our emotions and we're saying mental health is a weakness, so we're trying to avoid that whole dealing with emotions. The problem is we're also skipping the good emotions because we're saying we can't handle any of them. Now, I'm going to let that sink in for a second, because that is an interesting point too that I had to come to realize was it wasn't just the tough emotions I was struggling with. It was the acceptance of, hey, what do I do when things go right? How do I believe in myself when I'm successful at something, when I complete a project, when I go and went on a call and we had a success and we helped somebody through that tough times? When I went into a meeting and I presented, or I went in and we got a project done, and then people liked it and started using it at that company or across the nation. It was exciting, but again, if we can't handle our emotions and we try to hide them because we view it as a weakness, well, now, not only am I massively struggling on the one end whenever the negative or the tough emotions come up, but I am also denying myself any of the success or any of the happiness from anything I have achieved. So my point on this and what I want to show you is, wow, when I said emotions come with us and they're involved in everything, you probably thought about the tough stuff. But let's not forget, it's the full spectrum of emotions out there in life we need to get comfortable with, because we want to, and they let us experience the full life experience. Because again, I'll go back to the little analogy, but if you're trying to hide from your emotions and you're trying to pretend they don't exist because you view them as a weakness, you're kind of signing up for a flat, basically, best analogy I can think of is when you're driving through the cornfields in the Midwest, or if you've ever driven through the desert. Again, it is just going on forever, and it's very hard to feel any movement. It's very hard to even judge if things are happening. You could be driving for hours and it looks the same. We certainly don't want that in our life. So we are going to stop the nonsense. We're going to stop here, and we're going to start to unlock the real core power of being a mental health warrior by starting at the beginning. And the beginning in this case, and it's in my book here. I'm going to bring up my book. And this is my book that has the blueprint for being a warrior. So in my book, I triumphed over bipolar, alcoholism, and anxiety disorders by becoming a mental health warrior. We got the blueprint in there for how to be a warrior. And one of the key parts, we have the 4 components, but one of the key parts at the end is there are 15 warrior principles. Now think of these as guidelines, ways to live. And number 1 on that list, and the very first thing that we all as mental health warriors have to do, and we want to do because it's exciting, is to make and believe and embrace that mental health is a strength. Now, I know I'm going on about that, but I can't emphasize enough how important and how impactful this was in my own life, because that change of a mindset made a whole difference on how I viewed experiences. It made a whole difference on how I viewed and accepted what was coming next and how I could move forward in life. And it gave me the power to face up to the challenges like I talk about: bipolar disorder, alcoholism, anxiety disorders, PTSD, social anxiety. I could go on the list. I'm going on and kind of joking and making a little fun because I have a big list. But think about it. Before, I would never even talk about this. I would keep this in the darkness. I would never let anybody know this. I certainly would never admit or ever go around and tell people, oh, I'm struggling. No, I would tough it out. No, I would choose short-term solutions. No, I would cover it up like maybe many of you have, with that big smile on my face that everything's fine. Just load me up, keep on going, and I'll be fine. And inside, I was crumbling. Now, at this point, if you've experienced this, I just want to let you know you're not alone. I also want to let you know that I saw a lot of physical challenges, physical things with being an EMT, physical ailments, physical illnesses, and also accident scenes where there's a lot of physical trauma. But one of the worst things I've experienced in myself, and I've seen some other people do that, is when we emotionally crumble, when we can't even imagine wanting to be around anymore because we feel we're such failures because of our emotions. We've let them take over. And again, they are part of everyday life. But that pain, we can stop it. And we can change things around and make that into power. And that is why this is the number 1 warrior principle. And this is why I'm dedicating this whole episode today to this. It is so important because once you change that mindset and say mental health is a strength, well, the first thing you can do is what we're doing right now. We can talk about it. We can talk openly about it. So I'm going to tell you a story here. I can't tell you the number of times that I have been in line at some place and I'm wearing my mental health warrior shirt, or I have my book maybe in my hand, and somebody asks me what that's about. And I tell them it's based on my personal experiences, these struggles, created this program, a self-help approach that we can all use. And the reason being is we start a conversation. And the next thing you know, we're sharing things openly, and we could be in a line at a fast food place. Now, this blows my mind because I think, wow, most of the time, like everyone else, we get in line and we're kind of in our own little world. We just want to get through that line. But here's an experience where I have had this at a grocery store, at a fast food place, and I have started a conversation about my mental health, which led us into a further conversation throughout the whole ordering process, maybe even throughout the checkout, involved the checkout person too. We're all sharing stories. And that experience, now while I got my groceries and got my hamburger, well, guess what? That whole experience empowered me, it empowered the other people, and it gave us a chance to connect because we view mental health as a strength, which allows us to talk about it. Now, that is amazingly exciting because that is one of those first steps as a warrior that we can take. And the exciting part is that will have a ripple or a snowball effect, because once you start to understand and firmly believe how mental health is a strength, well, then you can not only accept it, you can start to build that power and find ways to use it. And you can come to terms with things, and you can learn lessons from those tough experiences too. Now, all of this is pretty exciting. And what has happened is I'm just going to apply this now. And I started to apply this years ago. And it has allowed me to now go into meetings and to go into life with some tools. So one of the things is we go back to in the Warrior program, one of the tools is we have mindset rules. Now, mindset rules Kind of like we talked about the warrior principles. I wrote them down, and they're rules that remind us of certain truths in life that get lost in the hectic pace of the day, but are though very impactful and can help right our mental ship, if you will, or they can help us get out of problems. So one of the mindset rules I turn to is mindset rule 21, which says approach learning with a beginner's open mind. Now, I bring that up because we are changing how we view mental health. And as part of this, one of the neat things is we're going to change how we approach learning. And a beginner, well, they get to make missteps. They get to fail. And you'd never put down a beginner because they're in there trying. So I'm going to encourage you, as you accept this warrior principle number 1, that mental health is a strength, and it is, and you start using it, it's okay if you stumble a bit, because we're going to approach, as we remind ourselves, we're going to approach things with a beginner's mindset. And we're going to start to grow that power and accept it. Now, I'm giving you this heads up, if you will, because it's going to be a change. And it was a change to start talking openly. It didn't happen overnight. I didn't get that comfort level I have today where I'm engaging in open conversations with people, but it took effort and time, and it will take some missteps. But again, that's the powerful part of being a warrior. And then you can even further unlock the power, because as I mentioned, we can learn lessons from those tough experiences. And we can also then, here's the biggie, and here's why we're talking about this today, and I kind of saved it for the end, but then we can accept the good. And if you're like me, a lot of times your disorders, your challenges, your mental health challenges like bipolar likes to send me in depression for no reason. And things like anxiety, it likes to lie to me and tell me as soon as I finish that project and feel good, oh, I bet there's a mistake. Oh, I bet you need to go back and do better next time. Not true, because we put in our best efforts. And again, I remind myself, it's a learning. We're learning how to use this power of mental health is a strength. And I learned to accept some of the emotions. I also learned to break through and tell those things that, like bipolar and anxiety, that's not true. And I know it now because I accept myself, and I can actually accept the good that I'm doing, the good success we're having each day. And that's really exciting. So I think we've covered a lot of this. I hope you've been excited. We've talked about change of a mindset. I just want to give you a quick synopsis. So we have changed, and we see the power, and we see what can happen, as I mentioned with my story, when we view mental health as a weakness. That is not a good approach, sets us up for failure, kind of puts us on a downward slope all the time. But when you accept and embrace that mental health is a strength, well, the first thing is you can be a warrior. And I'm putting my shirt right now because I'm so proud of being a mental health warrior. It means I am not perfect. I still make mistakes. I still have missteps, but I'm in charge. And I today embrace all my emotions. And let me tell you, that is a world away from how it used to be. And as a result, my life is a world away in a better sense than it used to be. And you can push yourself to try new things. You can get excited about things where you might have been hesitant before because if you're struggling with anxiety or depression, it tells you you can't do things. You will find you can. So again, this one first step was so important that we spent all this time talking about it. So go out and use it today. Start your journey by accepting this, and you will find, I'm sure, a handful of things in the next couple hours where you'll say, ooh, I'm accepting my emotions because they're a strength, and it will turn how you view those experiences into a positive. So get excited, and we will talk more about other ways to be a warrior. We're going to keep going. You can always go to bruceshooter.com. That's where the home of the Mental Health Warrior program. And again, we have all sorts of things, the books. We have the challenge coin. It's a portable way to bring the program with you everywhere. There's also a free book on the site. You can get started with even more details like we've talked about in other podcasts. So we've got a lot to get going. But this one today, you don't need anything except your thinking. And you just need to embrace mental health is a strength. And emotions are everywhere, which means this is not just a little strength. This is Superman type strength. We can then triumph over any challenge that life throws our way. Look forward to talking to you more. Thanks for joining me, and keep going because you are a mental health warrior. Thanks. Bye.